Hello, class. My name is Bryant Wall, and I'm going to present my research portfolio project for our Week 8 forum. So, to give you a quick overview, the primary reason why I decided to pick this topic was I was curious if having male friends led to an increase in the frequency of sex in regards to a woman. And how did those interactions play on each other? For the purposes of this study, I didn't go very deep into the differences, into the different cause and effects of some of the results of my research topic. And this was primarily due to the fact that I'm a novice researcher and we only had 8 weeks to conduct this research. So my hypothesis, I'm going to cover my overall research question, my theory, and my null hypothesis. So, do men tend to have more sex with their significant other if the man is aware that their significant other have multiple male friends? So, my theory is that having and maintaining friends of the opposite sex for women is a bigger sexual driver of copulation than anything else. And my research hypothesis is the number of friends of the opposite sex that a woman has is directly tied to the frequency of sex between a couple regardless if they are dating or married. Now, my null hypothesis is that the number of friends of the opposite sex does not affect the frequency of sex and ultimately the number of children one has. I reviewed 2 pieces of literature on this topic. The first one was sex differences in approaching friends with benefit relationships. Now, when I was reviewing this, I found that people tended to enter into friend with benefit relationships because it was convenient for them. They both benefited from having that friendship and having that physical aspect as well. So the first piece of data that was presented in the study was a simple table with the demographic breakdown of all of the participants. Majority of all of the data that was presented in the study was in table format. I did not see a lot of testing done, like chi-square or anything of that nature, no histograms or anything like that. The research showed that 60% of women, as compared to 40% of men, wanted the friends with benefit relationship to be something more than just, sex and friendship. Now, the second piece of literature was in regards to sperm competition in itself. And the overarching theme here was that the amount of sperm ejaculate from a male into the female for fertilization purposes depends on sperm competition. That is to say, the way in which sperm from different males compete for fertilization inside of the female. So the study used a lot of charts similar to the last one, and they had something called a fair raffle chart, which displayed the mechanism of sperm success with that of empirical examples. Further along in the study, the researchers dive further into sperm competition from the female's perspective. One of the things that they noted was that the female body has the capability to store, and house the sperm from multiple partners for a specific length of time. They also discovered that the female body has the ability to reject a mate's sperm based on his social standings. And that's right now still under more scrutiny. They're still doing more peer-reviewed testing on that bit of the data. And majority of the data that was presented in this study was ordinal data vice nominal data. So the survey instrument that I used was a GSS website and the GSS software. GSS meaning the General Social Survey. And this data is used by social scientists worldwide, and it began to get collected and compiled in 1972. So we as the students were using the same software that professionals use in the real world, which added a sense of realism to our study. Now, in regards to the variables I pulled, it's all quoted verbatim in regards to the questions and the answers. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into what was my dependent variable and what was my independent variable. I use the variable sex frequency as my dependent variable, with the question about how often did you have sex during the last 12 months. And as you can see, there are multiple answer choices here. And my first independent variable was XMAR sex for extramarital sex. And the question associated with that was, what is the opinion about a married person having sexual relations with someone other than the married partner? Is it always wrong, almost always wrong, wrong only sometimes, or not wrong at all? With variable answer choices. I use the independent variable sex to code the respondent's sex, and the independent variable POSLQY, I really can't pronounce that, so we're just going to call it POSSLQY, with the question, which of these statements applies to you, and code only one, i.e. I'm married, living in the same household as my husband, I have a steady partner, and we live in the same household, and there's multiple other choices. I am not going to read them all. The next independent variable was friend sex, with the question associated to it being, if you had other partners, please indicate all categories that apply to them, i.e. you had sex with a friend, you don't know, not applicable, so forth and so forth. Another independent variable was acquaintance sex, with the variable question, if you had other partners, please indicate all categories that apply to them, i.e. your neighbor, coworker, long-term acquaintance. And there are 4 answer choices associated with this variable. The last variable is relate sex. And the question here is, the last time you had sex, was it with someone you were in an ongoing relationship with, or was it with someone else? And for purposes of this variable, sex means vaginal, oral, or anal only. And there's multiple choices to go along with this variable as well. Now, in regards to my findings, the variable estray revealed that sexual monogamy while married is on the decline. So over a 23-year time span, 11% of respondents had sexual intercourse outside of their marriage, with 54 staying faithful. The variable friend sex revealed that people engaged in sex with their friends more frequently today than they did in the past. Again, the survey started in 1988 and ended in 2014. So you can see that 8.9% of people were having sex with their friends based on this survey. What's even more interesting is when you step outside of the friend zone and you look at the acquaintance zone, more people are having friends with their acquaintances, i.e. their neighbors, co-workers, or long-term acquaintances, more than they're having sex with their friends. Which I find very, very, very interesting. So, as we move on, roughly the same number of individuals used condoms in 1996 as they did in 2014. Less than 1% of respondents reported not knowing if they had used a condom or not. And the variable used to gain the aforementioned was condom. So, When I ran the frequency tables, the data was able to show that 10% of respondents had extramarital sex, even though 50% believed extramarital sex to be wrong. Sex with acquaintances fell in at 6%. Sex with friends fell in at 8% overall. And 65% of respondents were not using condoms. As I furthered my research, I found that over the course of the past year, female had more sex weekly than men had monthly. The data further shows that sex with friends far outweighs that of not having sex with friends. For example, 20% of respondents stated that they had sex with their friends 2 to 3 times per week, and 22.8% stating that they did so 2 to 3 times per month, whereas 17% stated that they were not having sex with their friends. So I pulled a lot of data from the chi-square test. And because I'm running low on time, I'm not going to read them all. However, I wanted to test a number of different hypotheses, starting with the amount of sex a person had in the previous year is directly linked to the relationship that person had with their sex partner. The null hypothesis for this one was the amount of sex a person had in the previous year has zero bearing and is not affected by the relationship that person had to their sex partner. In regards to the hypothesis here, there was light evidence that suggests that there is a relationship between the frequency of sex during last year and the relationship they have with the person they are having sex with. As you can see, the probability is less than or equal to 0.19. The null hypothesis will remain. Since there are 1 cells that have an expected count less than 5, our assumption is violated for this data set. Despite the data showing no close association of the two variables, a person might still be highly sexually active with other types of people. Alright, so looking at the frequency of sex a person engages in was directly tied to how often they had sex with a friend last year. And the null hypothesis was the frequency of sex a person engaged in had no bearing on if that person was having sex with a friend or not. In regards to this data, there was weak evidence that there is a relationship between the frequency of sex during the last year and whether or not people are having sex with their friends in the past year. So for this one, I chose to keep my null hypothesis. Since there are 2 cells that have an expected count less than 5, our assumption is violated for this data. For time purposes, I am going to fast forward a little bit. However, you will get the chance to review all of my tested hypotheses, and along with all of the tables associated with all of my tests, such as frequency tables, histograms, chi tests, t-test, all of the tests that I've done throughout the course of the past 8 weeks is listed in this final project, and I will post it in the Week 8 forum for your viewing pleasure. Alright, so getting down to the conclusion. So from the research I conducted, I've determined my research to be conclusive. The data shows that sex with friends far outweigh that with not having sex with friends. The chi-square test evidence revealed that there is a relationship between the frequency of sex during last year and the type of relationship they have with the person they are having sex with. The chi-square test data further revealed that the frequency of sex during the last year is not mutually exclusive with the frequency a person had sex with their friends. Thus, a person could be having sex with multiple sex partners, all of whom might have a different title. When it comes to condom usage, there is no correlation with a person having frequent sex and using a condom. I further found that the amount of sex a person had over the last year is not directly subjugated to the number of times they had sex with their acquaintances, and the two are not mutually exclusive. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my research project, and take care.